You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you are here with us. We're grateful for you being on as usual, and it's going to be a great show today. We did not have a show yesterday, however, due to a power outage over the weekend, and then we came in and got ready for the show, and then all of a sudden realized that it affected everything here, and we're not able to get everything up and running before we're able to have the show. But today and yesterday we were supposed to have Councillor Natalie Labby on, but today we will have her on instead. And so she was gracious enough to be able to come on today instead of yesterday. So we're grateful to have her. She'll be on in about 10 minutes. So we look forward to that. And there's been a lot going on in our city as of late, and Natalie has been very vocal about what's been going on, and we appreciate her and her being able to speak out, and speak her mind with what's been going on. So we've had, our CAO, Ed Archer, who was given the ability to be able to give himself and some upper management raises. Like, he had the authority to do that. It was given to him by council, but council, or some members on council at least, were vocal and said that when he went ahead and gave him and some colleagues anywhere between, they already were getting a 3% raise for inflation, which a lot of us would appreciate if we were in the same boat, but that wasn't enough. So they gave themselves an additional 6 and 8% raise over and above, which accounted to altogether 9% and 11% in raises for non-unionized upper management in our city. And so basically that was a leaked document that came out, and people were obviously upset about that. And Natalie and some other councillors have been very vocal about that, and that they felt that was an overreach on his part, and he took that authority and took it to another level. So since then, they amended the document that gives him the powers to be able to do this. And anyways, and then there's the other the leaked document that came out about overtime and hundreds of thousands of dollars in overtime paid out to city employees. And, it's like, that's kind of like mismanagement on the cities. This is taxpayers' dollars. Like, why so much overtime? And it was later revealed that a lot of employees were just kind of no-shows or whatever and taking leaves, and they had to be filled in by current employees, which then had to log some overtime hours. Anyways, it's pretty crazy what's been going on. And then also, I guess Natalie's been having a stalker type situation where she's had to call the police, somebody harassing her and following her around. So that's made the news. So there's 3 kind of major headlines, and there's more. Like, city politics these days, it's not like it used to be, very, very dry and whatever. We live in a very complicated time at the moment, and so it's something that everyone's trying to wrap their heads around and make sense of with what's going on. The city, $48 million in debt 4 years ago, and now we're going to be $600 million in debt, right? So there's that, and then the new library and the new events center / arena, and that's been pretty controversial, and all the stuff going on around that. So downtown itself, the opioid crisis, the homelessness epidemic that we have, amongst other things, the heavy immigration. Do we have the infrastructure to handle it? That's going on at the moment. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of moving parts. This isn't easy at all. So anyways, we're live on CKLU 96.7 FM. We're streaming at cklu.ca. Click on the Radio Player Canada app. You can stream us that way. You can also download that same Radio Player Canada app. Take us with you. Listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. And we're streaming at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. The show will live afterwards on demand on Facebook and YouTube, also Twitter, now X, twitter.com/Sudbury News, and at our website, sudbury.news. Click on the Sudbury News Talk tab. So it lives in 4 places afterwards on demand, so you're able to catch the show. The conversation can continue, however, on Facebook. And I'm going to encourage everybody, I won't be able to get to people's questions today. I know that we're going to want questions, but I'm the only one here interviewing and making sure the show is running and paying attention to comments while I'm going to be interviewing Natalie and trying to listen to what she's saying so I know what question to ask her next. I will be looking at the comments. I will be throwing them up on the screen. And Natalie, I know she's gracious enough to go on afterwards and talk to people's, speak to people's questions. So I'll just say that ahead of time. And another thing too, let's keep the comments respectful. There was a comment the other day when we were talking about Natalie that it was just a little bit off color, and you know what I mean. We can be respectful on the show. I know I know that our our viewers that are here each and every day, and they have, you know, a lot of respect, and the comment didn't come from somebody who's on the show every day. So anyways, I'd just like to encourage everybody to be respectful and mindful that, like you would want to be treated yourself. And so we're just going to have a quick break for weather. We'll be back with Natalie right after this. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show as usual, but a little bit better today. And your Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. Currently, it's 13 degrees. It's mostly cloudy out there. And today we can expect cloudy with a 60% chance of showers and a high of 16. The UV index will be 5 or moderate. Tonight, partly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers early in the evening. This clearing this evening, however, and we'll get to that, what will follow the clearing tonight. We'll have a little bit of wind gusting to 40 tonight. The low will be +4. Now here's the thing. Long range, Wednesday, it will be sunny, high of 16. Thursday, sunny, high of 19. Friday, sunny, high of 24. Saturday, sunny, high of 24 as well. And then a mix of sun and cloud for Sunday and Monday, 23 and 24 degrees respectively. So you can see the temperatures are rising. The sun's coming out as of tomorrow. We'll see if that sticks. If it does, that's pretty amazing. 4 days of complete sun, even going into the weekend. We can really appreciate that, but it's hard to imagine when you look at the satellite. It's just all clouds everywhere at the moment. But that's your Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. We'll be back with Natalie Labby and a great conversation with her right after this. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. Okay, and here we are, and I'm hoping, because we didn't do a little check ahead of time, that Natalie's mic is working and all that stuff. So good morning, Natalie.
Good morning, Aaron.
Oh, your mic's working. It sounds good too. It's nice and loud. So the last time you were on the show, we had you, we had Mike Perrant, and we had Pauline Fortune. And it was a great conversation. And you guys were pretty much still in the honeymoon stage of your being counselors on the city council. And since then, lots has happened. Lots of changes. We have two new counselors after you guys because of the unfortunate deaths of 2 of our counselors. And so council looks a little bit different, and you guys aren't the new kids on the block. And so that's one thing. But again, do you feel that you're, still in the honeymoon stage, or is that completely over at this point?
No, there's different there's different stages of group development, and we're definitely past the honeymoon stage.
It's I kind of figured just from with recent, things that are in the news. And speaking of that, we want to dive right in. Like this is, I really appreciate you being so open and transparent with where you're coming from and able to share your point of view. And you do have a point of view that many Sudburyans also have, and it's really great to have someone in council who's able to say things openly. Now, I don't know where to start here. There's, like I said in the opening, there's three major things that we could talk about, but where would you like to start today? And I know you've already been you've written a press release, and Sudbury Star has picked up at least two or three stories on you. Sudbury.com, there's an instance where they took exception to something you said and whatever, and so that we'll get to that. So that you've been in the news there. You've been on CBC, and so you've been and I appreciate you being on the show here. So you're very good at communicating to the public, and so we really appreciate that. So let's just, for those who might have been living under a rock or just not privy to what's been going on here, what's been happening these last couple months?
So, Aaron, let's start off with the expose in the newspaper that I wrote.
Yes.
Because I think that that's something that is an unfinished item.
Cool.
And so I'll take people back to the council meeting of May 14th. On that agenda, there was a motion to remove delegated authority from our CAO. The mayor wasn't at that meeting. And of course, we always want to put our best foot forward with the public and allow them to see that we are getting along. And I don't feel, up until a few days ago or last week, I really don't feel like we were a fractured council, but I'll move forward on that in a little bit because I need to come back to that to explain that part to you. We've moved forward with a lot of really big projects as a council. The mayor's State of the City address was great because it was able to summarize all of the really good things that we've accomplished in a really short amount of time. A lot of the councils in the past didn't have the fortitude to move forward. So it was great to quantify that. And in the spirit of us working together, I think it's important that we show some solidarity in some of the decision making that we have, because in the past, the previous council has been very fractured, where it was half and half, and maybe the mayor at the time was the deciding vote, and that's not happening. But I'll take you back, like I say, to the May 14th meeting. And some people are really upset about this delegated authority, but I just wanted to explain what the delegated authority was. It's always been in place. Every single municipality has a delegated authority for their CAO and their directors. The difference with Sudbury is that, and again, since we made a change and an amendment back in September, and I will take you through a very simple timeline so people can follow it. I started second guessing that, right? And that investigation, I guess, that deep dive, as you want to say, showed us that our delegated authority is 38 pages long. In comparison to all of the other municipalities, are about 6 or 7 pages. And in Sudbury, the CAO, at some point or another, has come back to council 22 times to amend it, to suggest to council, hey, in a closed session, let me take this off your hands, and has convinced the council to say yes to that. So little by little, the power and control of council has been eroded through their own fault, to say yes to that. So it's not something new. So people are saying, oh, it's council's fault for giving it to him in the first place. He always had it. What we gave to him in September of 2023 was an extra power, which should be in his purview as a CAO to make those decisions for his staff, right? So I'm going to take you through the timeline, because people are wondering, Natalie, why did you write this? Some people are saying, people are saying that I lied. Why would I do that? So,
well, and people are going to say all kinds of things, right? And you're going to get everything from, the whole gamut. Some people are going to agree with you wholeheartedly, and some people are going to be 100% against it. And so you always have that no matter what, right? I just wanted to get that out of the way. But
For sure.
yeah.
And people are like, wow, this is pretty out there.
Yeah.
What's going on? But I just want to preface it by saying this. Nobody runs around with their hair on fire for no reason. But I'll tell you something. What's not on fire is my pants. I'm not a liar, pants on fire. So I just want to say that. So I'm taking you through the timeline, okay?
Yep.
In April 2022, the previous council was presented with a report from the CAO in closed session to explain how the management groups in 16 to 18 on a chart. So everyone in the municipality, in all municipalities, not just Sudbury, everybody's got a chart of how people are supposed to move through the salary grid. And so council of the day was presented with the fact that, in fact, those salary grids between 16 to 18 were under par compared to comparative cities across Ontario by about 15%. So there is a bylaw in place that Councillor Parent has asked now for a review. And again, since September, we've been all kind of working and talking, saying, how do we get ahead of this so that it doesn't happen again, right? Because we didn't know. It was something that wasn't really explained to us. So we're learning and we're growing and we're getting better so we can prevent it from happening in the future. And that's what the message needs to be to people. If anything, we're owning this. It's not a mistake, but just a reevaluation of what is our authority, right? And the Auditor General said something to me, power is good, control is better. So I think that we just need to get a better grasp on that. And little by little, we're picking away at it. And I'm really optimistic. So back in April of 2022, the previous council said, yikes, 15%, that's a lot. We don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole because it's an election year and we don't want to be pegged with this extra money. So at the council meeting on May 14th, Councillor Leduc spoke up and said, the only reason why we're taking the delegated authority away is because there was a leak and we got caught. But we weren't caught with anything. And he explained that they were going to commit political suicide if they would have committed to the raises back then. So they didn't. So April 25th of 2023, this council, the council that we are elected into, met again. That exact same report was presented to council at that time for consideration. And at that point in time, again, this is not something I'm giving you confidential information. This is all in the newspapers. It's all been documented very freely because of leaks. And and council and the clerk's office put into position where we had to release this information. So again, I am not saying anything that is not already out there. I'm not breaching my oath of office by talking to you about it right now. Mm-hmm. So, at that point in time, the CAO suggested a 6% increase. Council said, you know what, 6 is not great because everyone else who works for us is only getting 3. So we said no. So then, December 12th, so September 26th, that's when we had a meeting, and that's when we were convinced to give the extra responsibility to the CAO to make a decision on those raises going into budget decisions. We had a very robust discussion about what that should look like. At no point did council say, hey, it's a free-for-all, go for it. However, that policy from 2004 allowed him to do that. So in December 12th, we had a meeting. It was a closed meeting, and there was 3 slides that were presented as a verbal presentation to us. And it was about budget, and we're not allowed to talk about budget in closed. However, there was some identifiable type of decision making that was going to reduce the budget by certain percentages. So that was the exception. And then we went into budgets. Everything went smoothly. You know, for the most part, we were asking a lot of questions. And those are all on transparent, in open government and transparent on the city website under budget. If people ever want to know, how is our council asking questions on our behalf? How are they trying to save money? How are they trying to make our bureaucrats accountable to the money that they're spending? It is all out there. And if you can't find it, reach out to your city councilor. We'll point you in the right direction to find it. There's nothing being hidden in that regard. So we pass the budget on, and every quarter the CAO has to come to us and present the last quarter of results. And basically it's a review of his position and where are we at in the standings with the city. So February 21st of 2024 was such a time. That is the evening that Councillor Jerry Montpellier passed away. So out of respect to his family, we said, you know what, we're not going to discuss this. We're just not going to have a meeting. We were pretty upset to know, because we had high hopes that he was going to rebound like he always did, right? And so in that report, we were going to have the opportunity to finally discuss with our CAO the raises that he used under delegated authority. It had never been disclosed to us before. It had never been discussed once during budget talks. Not once. In that report of February 21st, it listed 6 and 8% raises, not 9 and 11. At no point in that report was there financial quantifiable numbers to say what the 6 and 8 represented in our budget either. But we didn't have an opportunity to even unpack it with our CAO. It's the first time that we were getting that information. And we got it a week or so before, right? But it's the closed meeting where you have to have those conversations. That's the rules. I guess you could go to the CAO's office ahead of time and kind of unpack it individually, but it's intended for us to have a good, transparent conversation where we're all getting the information at the same time. So that did not happen. Then on March 22nd, so between that month, February and March, someone in the that works for us got word of these employment contracts, these contract letters that suggested that they got 9 to 11% increases. And they leaked it to Sudbury.com. And they said, honest employees, like this has been growing like a cancer. So now everybody knew, including council. Mm-hmm. First time we hear about it. First time. So there's reaction, Aaron, because we're like, what? This was never disclosed to us. This was never, ever communicated to us. So March 25th, the clerk sent an email to all of council, and it identified all of these slides, all of the presentations consecutively, and summarizing everything that we talked about to get to this place with the raises. And that's, at that point in time, there was some dialogue. It is an FOI-able email. If someone wants to FOI that email of March 25th and see which counselors asked questions for clarity, really, how many employees did this affect? And how much did it cost us? March 25th.
And when you say FOI, it's freedom of information, correct? It means the public
That's
can
right.
basically request to see these emails.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's open and transparent government. Now, I'm not going to breach my oath of office to start sharing all kinds of information and emails, because we swore that we aren't going to do something like that. But it is available to the public to follow that policy and that procedure. So that's what I am about. Some other people are apparently not. But it's not secret. It's just there's a process to follow.
Correct.
So March 25th, there was discussions that happened with counselors who had admittedly on May the 14th said, we knew. How did you not know? How did you not know that? Or is it because you're new to council? Did you not understand? And those same counselors who said that were some of the counselors that asked, how much did this cost us? How much did this little lap in judgment by the CAO cost us on March 25th? And when Tyler Clark from Sudbury.com asked our clerk's office and the CAO for quantifiable financial impact to our budget, they still could not provide it on March 25th. So how did we know as a council? How is anyone on council allowed to say that we knew? So again, on May 14th, Since then, we decided, and again, we had the arena discussion, we went over time, we couldn't deal with it the council meeting before. So it's building and building and building, and the public are wanting us to be accountable for all of this stuff. And we just didn't have the opportunity to discuss it until May 14th.
And I think just for the public, so that they understand, is politicians are elected and they represent the people that elect them to go in and speak for them and do what they would do if they were there. But bureaucrats are people that are hired to, as a job, and they basically do it their whole life, and it's a job. And a councillor may come and go. Someone who's elected comes and goes along the way. But during the life of a bureaucrat, someone who works for a city or a province or a federal government, they stay, and they might see, 4 or 5 prime ministers during the time that their life of their job is, or they might see, in their own area, like 6 or 7 councillors during the time that they're, or 4 or 5 councillors, depending. So the whole thing is that the city, they have things that they want to accomplish, and it sounds like here they had something they wanted to push through. They just had to figure out a way to get their way. And this is only one example. I'm sure there's other examples. This is only one that came to light. But they have ideas of what they want their jobs to be, and they want, to go forward. And sometimes they'll look at council as just a roadblock for that or whatever. And how do they get their own way? And so there's always this kind of juxtaposing two sides. There's council, and then there's the employees of the city. Council is asking the employees to bring forward information, and sometimes it's not forthcoming as it should be. And you go, okay, well, why aren't you just giving us the information that we want? And so this is the struggle. I just want to kind of set that, because that's kind of what's going on here, and that's what we've seen. And it needed somebody in the city to kind of leak these things out, to say, look what's kind of going on behind the scenes, and bring it to light, because the regular everyday process kind of wasn't doing it.
Exactly. And I give kudos to those employees, right? And I've said it in my letter openly. I don't care who the leak was. The fact that there's a cancer breeding within our corporation because of this decision is what the problem is. And I'm glad that they brought it to light. And I feel embarrassed that we weren't told, and we were caught behind the 8 ball. We were definitely blindsided. So on May the 14th, we had a council meeting. Everything was fine. We went through, a few of us said our piece. Myself, Councillor Perrant, Councillor Fortin, and Councillor Signoretti are the only ones out of 12 councillors that decided to touch this. We very professionally said and very succinctly expressed the reasons why we were supporting taking that extra amendment away from the CAO, and everything was fine. Councillor McIntosh, and again, this is all in open. This is people can go watch the video. I alluded it to my video. And Councillor McIntosh said, but the CAO didn't do anything wrong. And I've never once said the CAO did something wrong or out of his purview. I've never said that. We gave him that information. There's a bylaw in 2004 that allowed him to move people through that grid. Should it have been spread out by a few years, maybe, to make it a little bit more palatable? That would have made a lot more sense, but that didn't happen. So that's where we're at. But then
again, for the public, I think this is the important thing, right? What the public sees. And I think he didn't do anything illegal. He didn't do anything over what he already had the powers to do. But at the same time, when people are struggling and taxes aren't going down and inflation isn't going down anytime soon, things are getting more expensive, people are struggling. And then the public perception is that these city high up people in the city who can make their own raises. We don't all have this ability to do this at work, right? Just say, oh, I want to give myself a 9% raise this year. A lot of people cannot do that. I think the majority of people cannot do that. And so it's the public perception that was really bad timing, bad decision, and not good, kind of a black eye to the city, I think is the issue here.
Exactly. So on May 14th, Councillor Leduc spoke up and everything was fine. until he said what he said. And he said, we're only taking this delegated authority away because there was a leak and because we got caught. And he went to MCTV after that and repeated it and suggested that some of the counselors who have full-time jobs just might not be able to have the comprehension to spend some time to decipher these reports, because it was definitely in the budget. I never once said it wasn't in the budget, but please show me where it was, because at no point was it disclosed to us in that way. And I maintain that. So then Tyler Clark from Sudbury.com released it and sent an email last week to council that said, if any of you want to send me closed documents and confidential documents by your personal email, I would welcome that opportunity so that I can basically prove that Councillor Labbe is wrong. So she can die on her sword and resign if she's wrong.
Interesting as a journalist to have that kind of approach.
I'm telling you, but someone did. And that's the problem, because without trust, we have nothing. And someone from council released the documents. And there's nothing scathing in those documents, but it does show that on December 12th, we had a slideshow that had one bullet point of non-union raises that were approved. It was just a bullet point. There was nothing explained to us. There was nothing elaborated to us. And it also did not say it was for those sections 16 to 18. It was a very vague statement. So that's what he's saying I'm lying about. So I'm not lying about it. But that's what allowed me to put me in a position where I'm not going to allow another counselor or any of our staff to try and discredit my reputation or that of my 3 other colleagues that were brave enough to stand up and discuss this situation. First of all, I don't feel that the clerks made a good decision by allowing that discussion to be an open council anyways, because it was an issue with an employee, but it was allowed. So we had that conversation and it just went off the rails. And that's why I came forward and said, listen, this is the way that it is. This is what happened. And we can't do this again. How are we going to move forward? And for some accountability to it. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. And I appreciate you at least saying it like in this format, like on a podcast or a radio show. We're on different platforms, but reading it is one thing, and a lot of people don't want to take the time to read, and a lot of us don't really know all the intricacies that are going on at City Hall because it takes a lot of time to watch all the meetings and listen to everything. So that's why we rely on journalists, basically, to kind of vet things and give us all the important things and whatever. But, I'm sure a lot of people still didn't know the timeline and exactly what happened there. They're hearing little bits and pieces around the water cooler, let's say, I read this or I saw this headline, and they're just kind of connecting the dots on their own, which people usually do. And but I really appreciate that, just to be able to get it all out. Now there was also this, revelation or whatever of the overtime that's, being billed to taxpayers from city employees. And I just look at that, and I've had my own businesses. I've had at least 5 businesses in my life, and I have to pay my bills at my house, and I have to manage my own money for my own businesses and myself. And to me, that just speaks of mismanagement, whether it's operational, like being able to have people on staff, to have proper scheduling with employees, hiring, making sure you have enough employees. Like why is overtime a solution, and why is that? Why do we go to that and as a go-to when it costs taxpayers so much money? Why does the city have such a high overtime bill this last year?
So we really unpacked that during our budget discussions in December. And I'll tell you something, Councillor Forte, she is so particular with numbers. Like that's such a strong suit of hers. She was in the private sector and had her own business for over 30 years. Very, very successful business person. And we are so fortunate to have her on our council. She's very delicate and gentle in her approach, as where I'm taking the gloves off at this point, right? So she and I have a really great juxtaposition on how we tackle issues. But she was the one that really brought this forward during budget and saying, why are we only budgeting for 7,000 hours when one department has over 37,000 hours of overtime. So where do we pay that money from if it's not budgeted? Why is it happening? Just unpacking it all. And so right after budget, she asked, can we have a fulsome report about overtime? Can we just really deal with overtime, why it's happening? Again, how much does this cost us? And where are we paying it from? Because it's never been explained. It still hasn't been explained. And so that took 4 months. Last Tuesday, we had our finance meeting. The report came forward to us. I have shared the snippet of the video online. I don't want it to be seem like I'm trying to be causing problems or anything. I just want people to understand. I want to make it easy for people to not have to go through a 3-hour meeting. This is a part of the meeting that's really important for people to understand, so they can see that there are certain counselors that are speaking up for them, using their voice to be your voice, because that's what we were elected to do. So I'm starting to snip these things from our council meetings, and I'm going to start sharing them widely because more people need to know about it.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good. Like just little bites, right, of the important things. I think, yeah. If you're able to do that, that's great. Like there should be somebody in the journalism world that's able to do that. But journalism is. Go ahead.
They summarize our meetings into 3 little sentences of things, and people are knee-jerk reactioning, saying, "Well, how come my counselor never spoke up when we did? We just weren't quoted in the newspaper." So
exactly,
the information was brought forward to us, and then I questioned the staff. Why is this report half complete? Right? We asked for the financials. We're at the finance meeting. Why are the financials missing out of this report? And is it not the responsibility of the CAO to make sure that the reports that council asks for in a motion are complete before they come to us? So that's another example where we're getting half of the information that we specifically requested. So why is that continuing to happen? And if we don't know how to ask those questions, then we don't get those answers.
And it's nobody likes to be held accountable. I've yet to meet someone who loves to be held accountable, and when you're wrong, to be told you're wrong, or you need to change this or whatever. But that's exactly the way the city is set up, right? It's like we publicly discuss, how we're running the city. It's like if you were a business, which you are, it's a corporation. It's like the board meeting is public and everyone can kind of listen in on who's being kind of called out or asked for different information. And so things over the years, I think there's been a culture that's happened not only in our city, but other cities and governments in general, where you can kind of get to, a few counselors that are kind of, just trust me, it's okay, I'll make sure the city's being run and you don't have to worry too much, and okay, and they'll do lunch and the kids get together and play. I don't know how far it goes. But anyways, they end up just not holding the bureaucrats, the employees, the people that are in charge of running the city accountable, because, we don't want to hurt their feelings because, I know like kids play hockey together and stuff. And it gets to be this kind of culture where you turn a blind eye, you turn the other cheek, and then one thing leads to another. But when something kind of comes to light like this, you kind of see where it's come to. And I don't know if one of the pillars of the city is transparency. The more transparent it is, the less things like that can happen. And you just know when you go to the meeting, you're going to have to fess up. You're going to have to come and you're going to have to be accountable for what you're doing. And maybe you'll make better decisions going forward, knowing you'll be questioned, right? But if you're used to just getting a green light and everything's okay and there's the culture there, I think we're coming up against something like that here. I don't know if you feel the same or not, but that's what I'm able to kind of put together.
Right. And, I've seen some of the comments about closed meetings, but I've been on council before in Northwestern Ontario, and I wasn't sure what to expect here. And I can tell you, I have the utmost respect for our clerk, because we're only allowed to go into close for certain reasons. We can't just go into closed because we feel like it. It has to fall under what the Municipal Act says we can. And it is very, very regimented. I've experienced firsthand, and maybe people don't want to believe me, I don't know, but I've been very, very appreciative of how if a conversation kind of veers off track, the clerk hammers it, and so does the deputy mayor. Right away, like, you know what, folks, we're getting off track of what we're allowed to talk about here. Let's save that for when we're in open, and the hammer is brought down. And I have such respect for that process. And I'm really glad that that happens. But people need to understand, if we're doing a real estate transaction or a legal transaction or something that's going on and it's in before the courts, we're not able to have that conversation out in public. Once it's over and done with, we absolutely come forward with that information, and we do. It's out there. People say it's not. It is very much out there. Whenever, let's say, someone sues the city, as soon as that decision is made, it is made public, right? And how that impacts us. So there's no hiding. It's just a part of the process, and it is very respectful, and we do completely stay on topic. I have utmost respect for that process.
And there are processes, and it's come over time, and it's you have to follow these things. There's legalities involved. I mean, you can't, or you could be sued for different things and stuff. There's reasons why it's set up the way that it is. People are pretty passionate about the city, some more than others. And I think you've experienced that as a councillor, and a lot of other councillors. You get a lot of opinions. You get opinions like from the most negative to the most positive. I'm kind of seeing them even as they're coming up on the screen here. Some people are like, they're your cheerleader, and some people are like, well, I don't really agree with everything she's saying, or she's, this, that, or the other. So you're used to that already by now, I'm sure of it. But recently, you had an incident where it's kind of gone a little bit too far. Did you want to explain a little bit what just happened in your life with someone who's kind of taken a little bit too much of a interest in you personally? And
Right. So I think there's a healthy balance of what is reasonably expected for the level of criticism and scrutiny that we're going to experience as elected officials. And none of us go into it thinking that we're not going to experience that, or we shouldn't. We should have that astute understanding. But it takes a lot of courage for us to put our name on the ballot in the first place. And as much as people have opinions about things, most people don't want to put themselves out there for that type of thing. And I'll tell you, from being involved in it, I don't blame them. But I care about my community. I care about my city. I have the skills and the leadership and the passion for my city to make it better. And I have the courage to speak up where a lot of people don't. And I was elected to be the voice of the people. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm always going to make decisions that you're going to agree with, but that's why I encourage people to be informed, do your due diligence, reach out, try to understand instead of just being knee-jerk reaction to an article that you read. But in this specific situation, there is a person who has a very long history of being very opinionated with the city, and I just happen to live in the same community as this person, so he knows where I live. And what came to a head was that he came to my house. Now, not to threaten me directly or anything like that, but just to disparage me to contractors that were working on my eaves trough, right? Like, no other purpose than to just come to my house and just disparage me up, down, right, like up and down, He's of the opinion that as counselors, as his counselor, I should be forcing the police to come on our street and catch people on four-wheelers or whatever's going on. So, this person has a lot of pride in his property, and he will drive around the community and, see infractions of bylaw and that kind of thing. This person has a reputation of, in his mind, caring. But for me, it went too far. And it's been going far for a really long time, where it's escalated from just normal criticism of, different things that he sees as wrong with the city, or since amalgamation, how the outlying communities have, been on the back burner for the city. And I'm not I'm not discounting that. I've been very forthcoming and communicative with him, and saying, listen, I understand your concerns. Let's work on some stuff together, but you're going to have to check your language with me, and you're going to have to consider the words you're using, because in not just attacking at me, but just homophobic, prejudice, racism comments is not something that I am obligated to respond to and participate in. So the reaction was, you need bigger shoulders. Maybe you need to step away. Maybe you're not cut out for this if you can't handle the heat, right? But it's not about that. It's just about mutual respect when you're communicating with anyone. And I set that tone, and he consistently ignored that. So then it got to the point where he was sharing pictures of me from social media and snipping them and making disparaging comments about places that I was going in the community. So I ended up figuring out that he had Facebook, and I blocked him from having access to me because I felt that was going too far and unnecessary. And it just escalated from there to the point where once he was blocked, he was asking people on his BCC list to then go on my Facebook and send him pictures of me out in the community so he could further disparage me and further comments about, if I was with the Sikh community or if I was at the Caruso Club for something, he would talk about the damn Italians, or he would talk about the fact that I'm French and other councillors who are French and the mayor who is French and a liberal, and how it was just so much. He had pictures of all of council. He had pictures of a lot of prominent politicians, snippets and pictures of our staff on display in these BCC emails. It was just escalating to a point of obsession and a very unhealthy preoccupation. And when he came to my house to disparage me, he crossed the line. Now, this is not only 10 emails over 2 years, Aaron. This is hundreds of emails, and that's what constituted the criminal harassment charge, because police don't just give that out for no reason. They have to check all the boxes before they're able to do that. This person, maybe 81 years old, does not suffer from dementia or any type of ageist type of opinion, is not frail by any means, but his weapon is the internet, and that needs to stop. And that's why I'm speaking out. And I'm not the only politician that has faced this level. Of course, most people have opinions and they are critical of things. That's fine. But, I saw a comment last week on your page that said, our politicians need to remember who they work for. And I'll tell you something. If you're my boss and we work in the private sector together and you spoke to me like that as your employee, do you think you're going to get the best outcome from me as the person who works for you? Is that your way of reaching out to me as your employee and how you want to talk to me and how we're going to work together? Because that sets that tone. So if we have mutual respect towards one another, we can get so much more accomplished, and we can work together to find these solutions, but give us a chance. Many people just have apathy. I'm trying to change that. I'm coming forward and putting myself out there for even more scrutiny. Some of my peers who have been on council for a while have said to me, Natalie, you didn't have to say that at the council meeting. Just let it go. Just quiet down. Take the fire off the fuel, the fuel off the fire. Do you notice that the most of us don't get engaged with the public? But I think that the public wants it. And I'll tell you, it's tiring. It's exhausting to have to manage social media. But there's Councillor Parent and I that are very much in the forefront of trying to quell misinformation. It takes a lot of our own personal time that we don't get compensated for, because we're trying to help quell the misinformation. We're trying to reinstate trust on some level. Maybe you're not going to trust us as a whole of council, but it's important for me. I know it's important for Councillor Parent. I know, it's important for some other councillors as well. They're not as vocal, but they are good people to come forward and work towards bettering and growing our city, and hopefully doing it in a fiscally responsible manner. But again, if we're not given the information when we need it, that's really hard. So we have to work even harder and dig deeper to make sure that we are managing the public purse, and that's what we're doing.
You made a really good point when you said, someone on the show said that you need to know who you work for, and it is true. It's paid, your salary's paid by tax dollars, and I mean, your tax dollars paid for that over years too, and you're contributing to that. You're one of the people that are contributing, that's paying your taxes. I mean, paying for your salary. But let's just say we're your boss. But there's a line there. Like, if we are your boss, we could be found guilty of workplace harassment. If that was true, we took you into a room and we just blasted you with things we feel we can do on social media and say, hurtful things and whatever. Well, we would be, our hands would be slapped for workplace harassment. We might even lose our position at work if we were to act in that way. And I think that's an important point. I think if we are really your boss, I think then we need to act with respect, be informed as a boss would be, get informed. And when we're in discourse with you, like we're doing right now, be very respectful, be informed, so that way we can give, instead of just criticism and hurling insults and things. It's like, oh, I was reading last council meeting and this, that, and the other. And according, I looked at this, that, and the other, and I had a suggestion, and it was this. And you might go, oh, you know what? I never looked at it that way before. And so now it's a respectful discussion, which is really the key. Like, the community, the people are the boss of those that are representing us. It is what it is. But we have a responsibility of being respectful bosses, I guess you can say, and do it properly, not just hurl in. Like, we've all had a bad boss in our lives, right? That we can go back to and say, oh, that was wrong. They should have been, taken before whatever, they should have been having their hands slapped or lost their jobs for the way they treated me, and this, that, and the other. Are we that kind of boss? Like, what kind of boss are we then? So there's an ownership we need to take upon ourselves as community as well when we're dealing with those that are represented to those that are voted in to represent us.
Elected, for sure. Yeah. So for me, though, if you look at statistics, just like the province of Quebec has had over 300 of their elected officials step down since 2022. And they've cited mental anguish and stress over how they were treated, not just through social media and comments, but also how councillors and mayors are communicating and dealing with each other, right? It's a lot of pressure. So this is a job that's necessary. Someone has to represent you. Would you not want it to be someone that's passionate and connected to the community, and not just doing it for a paycheck? Would you not want it to be someone that wants to put in that time to find the answers on your behalf? Because that's what I was elected to do. And that was my oath of office, and I take it really seriously. So yeah, one of your commenters said last week on response to me being harassed that I might deserve it, suggested I deserve it because I have a mouth on me. That came from a woman. That's so disingenuous, Aaron. Like, come on. We need to be cheerleaders for each other, especially as women, because as women politicians, we take the heat even worse. I'd like to think that it's improving. There's so many organizations that are trying to encourage more women and more diversity on municipal councils, so you have a balanced approach. People say, get rid of the old white boys club or whatever it is. But how is that going to create change if people are just disparaging us as women for speaking up? So I'm not going to apologize for having ambition. I'm not going to apologize for having courage to stand up and speak up for the people that elected me. And as much as I have 168,000 bosses, I'm not going to be able to ever achieve perfection in their eyes. I'm not perfect. I'm a human being just like everybody else. I just chose to put myself out there and represent my city to try and make some positive changes, because not a lot of other people were stepping up. And I was asked to step into this role. I had so many people saying to me that I had the skills and I had the fortitude and the courage and bravery to do it. And I did. And I am not stepping down. I'm not going anywhere. It doesn't matter how many insults are hurled at me. It's not going to curtail or derail the work that we're doing. We are accomplishing really great things as a council. I think that next steps, we need to figure out who is not playing as part of a team, because obviously leaking confidential information is a weak link. and it should never happen. So that's the next thing that I'm going to be pursuing, because it's not about me, because I didn't do anything wrong. There's definitely a tone around the table where we're not trusting each other, and without trust, we have nothing. So if we can't trust the group of people that are entrusted to make decisions for you, we need to figure out that first before we do anything else.
Yeah, and I'm a proponent for transparency all around, and because we're human, right? We're tempted to do things. We might want to take a shortcut here and there, and if there's no accountability, there's no transparency. We're human beings, and things will happen. And so to prevent these things from happening, transparency is always the best thing to do. And I'm still advocating for a audit on the city, because these things are coming out, and an audit would show. We're just seeing little crumbs of things that are being leaked out and whatever, but a full-on audit, and I've suggested before, the mayor says, well, we can't afford it. And I do know there is somebody out there who would be qualified, who would more than happily do it. They're a retired accountant who've had a background in doing these types of things, high-end accounting. And if we can just get a volunteer audit, a third party to do it, I think a lot of things would be revealed. The only reason I say that is because the mayor said we don't have the money, but we're going to be $600 million in debt as a city, but we don't have the money to hold ourselves accountable and to show the public that everything is transparent and that we're showing where all our cards are. So I take exception with that, first as a citizen, and second as somebody who has a microphone and is able to kind of articulate things on a daily basis. I'm an advocate for a full-on audit of our, not only the finances, but processes and things that we have in the city to find things that were not as effective as we could be, which then does relate financially at the end of the day to be more fiscally responsible.
And I agree with you, Aaron. I am 100% behind that. And I feel that the more and more our staff are being called out for, leaving out information or whatever it is, whether it's, I don't care what the excuses are or the reasons, just give us the information. We shouldn't have to dig so hard. And I think that as much as you're saying the mayor said we can't afford it, I feel we can't afford not to. And I feel that more and more that we're doing this, there's going to be a palette for eventually, hopefully, the majority of council saying enough is enough. If we are going to accomplish the goals that we want and we can get ahead of this infrastructure deficit, we need to see where we're going wrong. And we need a fresh set of eyes, an unbiased set of eyes from an outside source to identify that for us. And as much as we have very competent and wonderful people working for us, I feel like if you're in it all the time and you're used to it being a certain way, that you might not you bring that bias naturally, and not in a malicious way, just naturally as human beings. So it's good to have an outside source coming in and looking in.
And what we see so important here is public perception too, right? So if you have an inside person doing it, the public will just say, well, it's just the city kind of doing their thing and they're trying to cover things up. Or if it's a third party, whatever, arm's length, person doing it, then there's less of a public perception on that. Well, thanks, Natalie, for being with us today. I think that you see how fast an hour goes. It doesn't take long at all. Now, I invite you to come back anytime, you or Mike or any of the other counselors who want to come on the show. I just think it's really great to be able to reach out and speak to the community like this. And again, I would encourage you, and I know you're going to go back and look at some of the comments, and feel free to answer any of the questions that we weren't able to get on the show to ask you in live, because really time is of the essence. And so anyone who's interested in the conversation, just check in on Facebook and see the thread there. And Natalie, just feel comfortable and feel that you're invited to go on and just speak to whoever's questions you feel you'd like to answer, and don't feel you have to if you don't want to.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, Aaron. And, we've spoken before about Councillor Perront and I, or even other councillors feeling comfortable enough to come and have an open dialogue. Maybe we need to have a segment once every few weeks that says municipal matters, and we just kind of unpack things. And if people are saying, let us ask the questions, come to us. We're accessible. Exactly. Our information's on the city website. Call us, email us. We might not be able to sit down with you that day, depending on our schedule, but we will make time for you. Not everyone, but there are some of us that will. And I think it's part of our job to do that. I meet with people that don't even live in my ward because I'm not just elected to the ward, I'm elected to represent the entire city, and I do that. So people do reach out to me all the time by email, Facebook, and phone calls, and I will go meet with them in person, especially if they've said something not very nice to me. I give them an opportunity. Come meet me, 5 minutes with me, and you're going to see that I'm genuine and I'm trying to do the best job that I can for you, because that's what I was elected to do.
Well, on that was a very positive way to end the show. We really appreciate it. So we'll be back with, what did you call the segment? Some matters, community?
Municipal matters.
Municipal matters. There, you already coined the segment name. So that's a great idea. Let's do that. We'll do that. So I'm committing to doing that right now. Let's do it. Okay. Thanks, Natalie. Appreciate you being on the show. Keep up the good work and the hard work.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone, for being with us. Stay tuned now for your Shot Daily on CKL. You'll be back same time, same place, God willing, tomorrow. Take care, like, share, and take care and all that stuff. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.